recently I brought a motion to Parliament to really discuss the debt issue in our country. And when we talk about debt, we are actually talking about national debt, borrowing and lending, but also the bigger picture and the broader picture of how national debt actually affects and has been affecting the most vulnerable in our society, has been affecting the low-income households. Now, one of the things that I tried to highlight in that very motion that I introduced just last week in Parliament is how the most vulnerable in our society are forced to go and borrow from loan sharks and from commercial banks, for example, who offer the services. Now, there's a recent statistic in our country that actually highlights that over 40% of our population are drowning in debt. These are public servants and civil servants. But really, what it goes to show is that decisions that are made with regard to a country's economy do have an impact on households, especially low-income households, but most importantly, the most vulnerable in society. We are talking about the unemployed youth, for example. We are talking about those low-income workers who are already struggling to make ends meet because they cannot afford to make ends meet, but also they cannot afford the basic needs, the day-to-day basic needs. One of the critical issues many of us very often are faced with is the issue of countries having to decide between debt servicing and development. And this should not be the issue. When they are forced to choose between that and debt servicing because of a loan that they took from the IMF or because of a loan that they got from the World Bank, then, ladies and gentlemen, we have a conversation that we must have, not just to save those that are already drowning in debt, but for the future generations who we want to see benefiting from local beneficiation of natural resources. We want our young people, when they get jobs, we want those jobs and the income that they make from those jobs to be able to afford them a decent living. We cannot separate the conversation around national debt, responsible borrowing and lending and have it without having a conversation or the interconnectedness that it has with human dignity. And I think that's where development must never be, or borrowing and lending should never be separated from basic development that ought to happen in the country. So I'm very happy to be sharing some of the thoughts with you. We have made a number of recommendations with regards to existing laws in this particular motion. The motion is still under discussion, but one of the things that we really want to make sure is that we are able to strike a balance between making sure that your regulation or the regulations that we introduce to really protect our consumers from exploitation and predatory lending practices also do not stifle, those regulations do not stifle doing business in our country. We do not just discourage or try and deter our leaders only from dangerous or exploitative lending, but also we are able to remind them of the social contract that exists in ensuring that the citizens and the citizenry and broadly really the sovereign of that country also are able to benefit, and that we do not just think about stabilizing a financial system or financial market, but that we are able to think about the basic human dignity of our citizens. Thank you very much.